Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with life coach Steve Rowell. Today is Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2019. It is 8 a.m. in New York. It's 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, Sydney, Australia, around 12 midnight. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And our friend Steve is not in his studio as he normally is when he does the show. He's out on the road, and he's taking the time to call in so we can do our regular conversation. So thanks for being accommodating, Steve. We appreciate it.
No, that's fine. Absolutely wonderful. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Wouldn't miss it for the world? Oh, that's good. That means you like it.
Yeah, it's always good fun.
And of course, this is a live stream Q&A too. So if you're listening to the live stream, if you're listening to the podcast, obviously you can't do this. But if you're listening to the live stream, if you're listening to the live stream, feel free to pop a question into the comments section, and we will be glad to address your topic. But in the meantime, we'll just get started on talking about stuff on our own because, hey, that's what we do here. So. What's happening at your end? What's happening over across the pond from the United States, as they say?
Across the pond. Well, the weather's not as nice as normal. It's raining a lot, which is that's quite normal for England.
It is, isn't it? Isn't that the law? Didn't they pass a law saying it has to be raining most of the time?
Yeah, I think so. But can I not create the weather I want? Don't know. That's my belief.
It can be done. I mean, I freak people out when I say this, but I literally have lots of experience influencing the weather. I mean, I won't go further than that because people get a lot of kilter on it. But it's true. I have lots of ability to do that. We all do. We actually, every one of us can do that. But yeah, we'll put that aside.
But yeah, no, I wanted to sort of carry on from where we left off. I don't know whether it was Thursday or Tuesday last week. I think it was Tuesday last week. Where we were discussing the stories that the subconscious mind creates in a negative format, which then we can actually do and do exactly the same, but in a positive way. That's where we got to last week, wasn't it? That's where we sort of finished off.
Yes.
Which is when you think about it that way, the majority of our lives we are running on these subconscious programs and belief systems that are passed on to us by influences in our lives, so our parents, grandparents, societal influences, whatever it may be. And those stories that our mind plays out around a negative outcome that we then create is really powerful and really easy for our subconscious mind to do, don't you think?
Yeah, we're good at it. We're really good at it. We spend a lot of time on stuff we don't like. It's amazing how much time we put on stuff we don't like.
Which is great because if you think about it, it is, yeah. But if you think about that, if we could switch that to using that exact same effort and power in creating what we actually did want, it's not actually that difficult. Because our subconscious mind already does it in a pre-programmed way. All we've got to do is reprogram it, to then do it in a positive manner, isn't it? And then we're in a place where we can create whatever we want, when we want. Well, maybe not when we want, but whatever we want, within the realms of our belief systems, which is all about belief, isn't it?
Well, actually, we could also do it when we want. If we're in a high enough vibration, we do have that level of control. It's just we're trying to learn that level of control more than anything else.
Exactly. That's what this stuff's all about, isn't it? And that's why we read the books. That's why we learn from each other and take knowledge from the path that resonates with us from other people as well. Because I learned so much from other people. And little things that'll turn up in my awareness, and I'm just like, wow, that's for me. I'm taking that one. That's for me. And some of the things that I've picked up from listening to other people talk about things in a slightly different way to the way that I'm used to is it's phenomenal the change and the effect it can then have on my life and the way that I do things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we change our perspectives frequently. I mean, well, let me say that differently. We change our focus frequently. Our perspective is always
Yeah,
our perspective, but we change our focus frequently. And when we do that, we see things differently. We see
yeah, we
things
do.
that are same thing we saw yesterday and that we saw the day before, but now we're seeing it from a different angle. And when we see it from that different angle, someone points something out to us, it's like, wow, I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah, and that's where the growth happens, because then you can something that was potentially, I don't know, an obstacle or a problem or something previously, you switch your perspective on it,
Hmm.
by listening to someone else's perspective on it, and then all of a sudden that isn't a problem anymore, and actually you've worked out that it's actually potentially a benefit to you because of what you've learned from that experience.
Hmm.
There are no bad, in effect, there are no bad experiences. There are only experiences that then we choose how to perceive and react to them moving forward, don't we?
Hmm.
Look at it like that, which
Yeah.
is
Well, it's a growth
another
mindset.
thing.
That's what that is.
Exactly. Yeah,
I mean, that
yeah,
growth mind, we are, that's what we do. Human beings, and in fact, every other life form on the planet, are all growth mindset beings. If they aren't, they die. There's not a whole lot of in between. You either grow or you die. It's one or the other.
exactly. That's it. Absolutely.
So, it's pretty straightforward. And growth is it's not something this is actually touching on a very important point that I've been focusing on a lot lately. Louis D'Souza and I talked about on Monday the idea that we as human beings very often feel like we have to go off the deep end. We are here for the contrast. We are here to deal with this negativity and to deal with all this stuff because that's where the growth happens. But we also get this mindset that says, well, if we're here for growth, then I got to go for big growth. I'm going to go into deep depression so I can climb out of that and have this tremendous growth experience. Well, yeah, you can do that, but you don't have to. You can have growth without
You
going
don't
into
have to.
depression. You don't need that much growth all at one time. You can do little bits of growth and it's fine. It's still growth. Growth is growth.
That's it.
And I think it's really an important thing because it basically, the idea that you don't have to grow lots all the time is permission to just grow at whatever pace feels comfortable. As long as you're growing, then you're doing great. And if you maintain the mindset of positive growth, you're going to grow in little bits of ways all the time. You're going to have like the experience you were describing, where you talk to somebody, they give you a new idea of a new way of thinking about it, like, oh, cool, I just had a little growth, and I didn't have to, get angry about it in order to get there. I didn't have to have this terrible catastrophe happen in order to get there. It's like, oh yeah, I just had this thought. That's it. No big deal.
No big deal. It's all, as you say, it's all a little bit. It's all the little bits of growth that add up to something
They
phenomenal
do.
and amazing.
Yeah.
And it can take time, or it can sometimes happen really quickly, depending on how. I think it's all about how ready you are for it as well.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. How much resistance do you have, or how much have you been able to remove the resistance? That's going to play a big role, no doubt about that. But
I think
I like the classic fable of the tortoise and the hare. The hare feels like he has to race in order to get there, and then he goes off and takes a nap in the field, and the tortoise wins. The tortoise got there taking one small step at a time. He took a lot of time to get there,
exactly.
but he got there, and it was even more effective because he actually won the race.
He did, and also I bet he learned a lot more on the way as well. And he had a lot of things to look at.
Oh yeah, yeah. He didn't sleep through it.
No, he didn't miss it. He didn't miss a thing. He was awake for the whole time, and he was taking in all the experiences along that path. Whereas the hare or rabbit or hare or whatever he is was rushing past, missing everything, not learning anything, and guess
Hmm.
what? He lost.
It
That's
really
a
is.
brilliant analogy. That is it? It's great.
It
That's
is. Well,
fantastic.
it's a fable about enlightenment. It's really what it is. It's about what it takes to be enlightened. In order to be enlightened, your eyes have to be open. It's just required. You can't be enlightened with your eyes closed, saying, "Oh no, I'm not going to look at any of this. I'm just going to go to sleep." You can't be enlightened that way. It doesn't work.
It'd be good if it did, wouldn't it? That'd be fantastic. You'd be able to switch off,
Well, entire people would sleep
completely
through their
over that.
entire lives.
Yeah, yeah. No, that'd be a bit boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it does. It gets really boring. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it is amazing because you've got to be present. You've got to be aware in order for that growth to take place and happen. Because if
I think you
you're
have to be
not
open
there,
to it.
and you have to be open to it. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in exactly the same place. I mean, a lot of, I mean, I've had clients whereby they'll do really well. They'll be ready to change and they'll go through the processes that we work with. And at the end of it, they've had massive growth, and I mean massive growth. Whereas I'll get some other clients that are just they think they're ready for it, but they're not, because they don't want to move outside their current comfort zone and
Mm-hmm.
belief systems. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to look at things a different way,
Right.
which makes it impossible for them to grow. And they're generally the ones that I'll say, look, it's not going to work at the moment. You're not ready for this, and I'll give them the money back and send them on the way.
Yeah.
So
Right.
because there's no point in working with people that can't accept that they need to change, or they want to change, but they don't feel they need to, which is rather odd. Well, it's not odd, is it? It's being in your comfort zone. It's a human condition of the subconscious fighting against and resisting that change.
But on one level, it's actually refusing to change.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing because, like you say, on the one hand, they want to have the improvement. On the other hand, they don't want to change. Wait a minute, I have to change in order to improve? No, I don't want that. But that's the attitude people often bring. I don't have to change. I want to be able to wave my magic wand and have things change for me. I don't want to have to do it myself.
That's it. I think we all have to change. Hang on, bear with me.
Changes
Yeah,
health, changes growth.
yeah, we all have to. I mean, if you look at children when they're learning new things, they're constantly changing. There's no resistance to change. They want to find out all these new things, but then somewhere in that growth, when we get to a certain age, or because of certain experiences, that particular what's the word, that need or that want to experience new things and grow seems to disappear, and it's replaced with a fear of it.
Yeah.
And that's where we as coaches come in, I think, because then you've got somebody that's afraid to change, and I suppose it's about unlearning the stuff that you've learned throughout your life that's having a negative impact on your well-being and a negative impact on your ability to change and grow.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what people call being stuck. Being stuck is in a place where you can't really see the way forward because you've kind of blocked it out in your line of sight. You're not really daring to look at it. You're not willing to consider the idea that you may have to do something uncomfortable in order to shift your perspective. Like you say, you may want to stay in that comfort zone, and that is being stuck. I mean, being in a comfort zone is, if you feel like you can't get out of it, that's being stuck. It's also an interesting thing too. We talked a moment ago about being open to something. When you're open to this stuff, when you're open to having experiences come to you that help you with your growth, help you with your mindset, without having to dive deep into the negative realm, they start to show up. And when they show up, I was experiencing that yesterday after the podcast that I did with Louis D'Souza. I had two meetings back to back. The first one was one I had planned and forgotten about, but
Okay.
it had come to me. I hadn't gone to create it. In fact, Louis actually had been the one who brought it to me. And then the second one was something that came to me. I think it was the day before, and I accidentally set up both meetings at the same time. It all worked out. It wasn't any big deal. But both of them were coming to me in answer to requests I'd put out to the universe. I had been waiting patiently for an answer. One of them I've been waiting for an answer for a long time. I've talked before about how I want to find ways to uh, make some money while doing these podcasts because I love doing the podcast so much. And it's not like I want to be charging our listeners to listen to the podcast. I don't want to do that. Really, and I kind of resist the idea of doing tons of advertising and so forth. It just doesn't feel right to me. So I've been looking for other ways. You and I have talked about that. Well, I ended up talking with Louis's brother, who's doing something that is parallel enough to what I'm doing that I could learn from what he was doing. And what he was doing was brilliant. I thought to myself, wow, I love this approach he has in mind. It's really, really, really fabulous. Why didn't I think about this before? I should have known this. It was kind of like the first time I ran into Abraham Hicks, right? You read Abraham or you saw a video or something along that line, and you heard the explanations that they gave, and you said, well, that's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? I should have known that. I mean, it's so simple. It's so obvious. But until it's explained to you, you don't get it. Well, that's what happened. I had this thing presented to me that was so obvious, except I had to have it explained to me because I didn't get it. And then the second one was a meeting with your friend Dan. Um, and he was telling me about his project. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. This is what he's describing is what I'm actually trying to do in my own life. This is great. I love this. And did I intend either one of those? Absolutely not. They just came to me. Why? Because I was open to it. Why was I open to it? Because I kept putting out there what I wanted and not what I didn't want. Very straightforward. Oh dear. I think we lost Steve. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back. There you are. I didn't realize that we dropped you.
Hello.
I didn't know what happened. Did you drop us or did we drop you? I don't know.
I think I dropped. I think my signal disappeared.
I was talking to our podcasters and explaining what my explanation was about being open to stuff, and I didn't realize you didn't hear any of it. They heard it, but you didn't hear it.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but we're back. Go on. Do you want to run through it again?
I'll give you the briefer version. I just gave them the longer version,
Yeah.
but the briefer version is I had two really cool things happen yesterday based on stuff that I had been putting out there, and some of it I've been putting out for a long time. One of it was about monetizing the podcast or monetizing in some way while I can do a podcast. I didn't really necessarily want to monetize the podcast itself. If I could find an alternative, that would be great. And then the second thing was just some things I'm just trying to do with my own growth. And yesterday I ended up, after the podcast with Louis, getting two meetings, one with his brother and one with our friend Dan Mangina. And the first meeting was Louis's brother is working on a marketing thing for something he's doing that's very parallel to what I do. And he was showing me what he's doing. I thought, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? And that was the comment I was making as you were logging back in. We went to see Abraham Hicks, a video, or we read a book or whatever, and we said, well, that's brilliant. It's so simple. Why didn't I understand that before? I should have known that. I should have thought that. Why didn't I think that? It was that kind of a moment. And then I had the conversation with Dan and this project that he's working on, and I said, well, that's what I'm doing with my life right now. This is cool. I like this. I like it.
Is that the where he was looking for 10 new people to?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
You'll get a lot out of that.
He was describing some of the stuff that he's been working on. Like he told me the story about how he was in, I think he was in New York City, and just as an experiment, he decided to just start walking with no particular destination in mind, just crossing the street wherever the crosswalk said "cross now." And if it didn't say cross now, then he would go someplace else. He would just go in whatever direction the crosswalks would take him. I thought, what a brilliant approach that is. That's exactly what I've been doing lately with my life. If I run into resistance over here, okay, I don't go there. If I have no resistance over there, okay, I go there. I just go where there's no resistance. And he's doing the same thing. I thought, oh, wow, this is great. I like this. It's really good. That's got to lead to good stuff.
It does. Because if you feel the resistance, then you go the opposite way. Or you change direction. But whether it's something that's happening, or a person, or a situation, or I don't know, and then there's a resistance there for a reason, isn't there? It's not just.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just I can't talk. It doesn't just turn up. So doing that is a way that you can create more effectively, because you're moving through life with less pain, less stress, less anxiety, because you're going through life on the path of least resistance. And if you're going on the path of least resistance, that means you must be going the right way, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. If you've got to be going the right way. And the things that turn up are just awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you have the eye for it, if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear and the attention to notice, because stuff that's the thing I'm realizing. Good stuff's happening all the time. We just don't notice it.
Yeah, it's about being present again, isn't
Yeah,
it? About being present and being aware that that's there and
exactly. So
taking the action at the right times.
we talk about trying to attract stuff into our lives, but the funny thing is the stuff's already there. It's already right in our it's right within reach. It's all right there. But we are the ones who have turned ourselves off to it. We are the ones who have blinded ourselves in a sense so that we can't see it. We're like the little kid, the 1-year-old who holds his hands over his eyes and says, "You can't see me."
Exactly, because everything in the quantum field world, as it were, every possible outcome and possibility is already there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of reaching out and grabbing it, in effect, with your mind, and with your thoughts and with your feelings. Once you've done that,
just in the last 24 hours, can you think of something that happened in the last 24 hours, something that came into your life that was unexpected or not planned in some way, and you had the eyes to see it, and you had the experience of, well, that was cool.
Yeah, I can't say exactly because confidential stuff around it, but
Oh, that's fine.
That's what I'm doing today. That's why I'm out and about. So yeah, I've set myself an intention to create a certain amount of money or more. Three days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then something's happened with work situations. I got an announcement, a phone call from a competitor as such that was no longer doing what they were doing. Decided not to do it anymore. I don't know why. But then I've ended up picking up all that business, which is way more than the amount of money that I intended to create.
Wow. So, congratulations. That's fabulous.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing. Over the past 24 hours, it all turned up yesterday. Got an announcement. This has happened. Can you go see this, and this person? They want to work with you now, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course I can, definitely.
That's great. Really, really good.
So yeah, it's.
But I also love the things that are the little things. I mean, those are always cool. Those kinds of stories are great. They're the kind that motivate us to keep going. Like, oh yeah, I want to attract all this really, really high end stuff for me. But there's also the little things that happen. Like yesterday, I think it was at the beginning of the day. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't the beginning of the day. When was it? At some point during the day, Louise said to me, "I'm not feeling well." And this is on the first official day of the gardening season. So it's important for her to be in a good feeling place. And just wasn't feeling well. And so we just spent a couple moments talking about it and helped her kind of squirrel it away, so forth, and just, put it aside and relax and not make a big deal. And she actually ended up taking a short nap. And, within 10 minutes after she got up, all of a sudden she was in a good place. And we said, hey, look, we're in a good place. Yeah, things feel good right now. And we celebrated it. Now, that was not a major, major thing that went on there, but it was important. It was important to notice it, and it was important to celebrate it. That's the kind of thing we don't tend to notice. We tend to miss these little things that happen that are so important in our lives because they help us get back into the vibration that we want to be in. So that's what I thought you were going to tell me when you said, here's something that happened in the last 24 hours. I thought it was going to be something like that. I didn't expect you to say, well, I had this, life-changing monetary situation. Like, oh, okay, well, that's great.
Yeah, I did have a life-changing. It's not life-changing, but it was a nice thing to happen. But yeah, I get what you're saying with the little things as well. Because another example of one of those. I can't think of one right now because I'm driving, so it's difficult to.
Well, even when we're driving, I mean, literally they happen all the time. How many times when you're in a good place and you're driving, do you get green light after green light?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's a little thing. That literally affects nothing in the larger schemes of things in terms of being a major shift. It's not major at all. It's a minor thing that happens, but it's fun. Especially if you get
Yeah,
like
it is fun.
10 greens in a row or something like that because you're in such a good place. You say, "Wow, I keep getting all the green lights." And if you
I feel
notice that, it's a source of energy.
yeah. As you're saying this now, I'm driving, and now this next light's on green.
Of course, that's
Because
the way it works.
we're bringing it into our well, my awareness. As you were talking about that, so I was actually sat at a red light as you started speaking about it. That changed to green, and then the next one's been on green. And see the next one, which is also, guess what? Green.
Of course, the way it works. Okay, now we actually have an audience question, so I think we probably needed that to make sure that we were staying fresh here. And it's right on topic. It's exactly on topic. How much time do I need to have the law of attraction result in what I'm trying to manifest? Exactly what we were just talking about a few moments ago.
It
How
is.
much time do you need?
Well, it depends how open to receiving what you've asked for you are, and how in alignment with that you've asked for your belief systems, how much in alignment with them they are, um, and then it should turn up as soon as all those things are a match. So your thoughts, feelings towards it, belief systems, and the vibration that you're at, they all need to be in alignment, and then it should instantly turn up in some form or another, shouldn't it?
Well, not only should it, it will. It's
But it
guaranteed.
will,
It's
yeah.
100%
Yeah.
guaranteed. When things don't show up, it isn't because the law of attraction isn't working. It's because we're not working. It's
Exactly.
because
We're
we're
not
not
in.
focusing the way we need to focus. It's us. We're the ones who are doing it. And that's actually a hard concept to learn, that I am responsible for everything that comes into my life, good or bad. That's a tough concept. I don't want to have to be responsible for the bad stuff that comes in. Can't I blame that on somebody else? That's what I like to
It'd
do.
be nice.
Well, we do it all the time. How many people are blaming somebody else for something that came into their lives that they don't like? It's routine. You find it's on television. It's in the workplace. It's in the school. It's everywhere. Everybody does that. Families do it all the time. I don't like this thing happen, so I got to blame somebody else. Can't be me.
No, nothing to do with me. I didn't attract this. But yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because you've got certain certain things that we will take responsibility for, and usually they're the good things that happen.
Yes.
And then certain things that we won't take responsibility for. I mean, I take 100% responsibility for everything now, regardless of whether it's good, bad, indifferent. It's there. So how can it be present in my experience if I've not, in some form or other,
Right.
created it? It's I don't know whether to go down that track that we talked about earlier.
Well, there is there is one aspect of that track, and yeah, we don't need to go that particular track, but
No,
there's
no.
one aspect of that track that I do think applies here, and that
Yeah.
is the concept of blame. We have, as a species, this belief that if something went wrong, something has to be blamed. That someone must be blamable. And the flaw in that theory, of course, is that blame is a negative vibration. So the moment that you posit the idea that someone has to be blamed is the moment that you're saying, I have to go into a negative vibration if something that I don't like happens. Well, that's a losing scenario. You can't win that way. That's just not possible.
But also, if something that you don't like happens, you can then go into a positive vibration of, actually, I can learn from this experience and I can change something to make it not happen again.
Exactly.
That's where we should be. That's the correct line of thinking, isn't it? So that you're actually creating something positive out of something negative. And if you're coming from a place of love and compassion and making decisions from that space, then it's impossible for negative vibrations to even exist if you're constantly in a place of love and compassion and happiness and joy.
Because those are all positive vibrations. Every single one of those are positive. Yeah. You can't experience those in a negative space. You can't possibly do that. There's no way to feel love and compassion when you're feeling negative. You just can't.
No, you can't. And a good analogy of that is the example of a bully.
Yeah.
If somebody's bullying somebody else or you, and they're saying negative things about you, and you approach that from a place of love, happiness, and joy by saying to them, "Yeah, I agree with you. I am sometimes like that, and I don't mind being like that because I love myself anyway." And all of a sudden, they can, and you start being nice to them, they can. You'll see them switch. They can't stay in that negative vibration. They can't keep being negative towards you, and it works fantastically. I do it all the time.
There's a second part of that too. You're right. You're exactly right. But there is a second part, and I think I need to spend more time focusing on this in the podcast, because for somebody who is hearing that message of, well, if you're in a positive space and you're focusing positively, you're focusing with love, you'll basically derail that negative train that they're on, which is true. It will. But the thing that people often figure is, since they're starting from that negative place, they say to themselves, okay, from this negative place, I have to feel love and compassion. So they try to do that, and they don't succeed, and so they end up feeling bad about the situation because they're in a negative place. And the moment that you try to convince yourself that you are feeling love and compassion when you're feeling negative is the moment you're tripping yourself up. It's the moment that you are basically putting out a mixed signal to the universe, thinking that you're putting out a positive signal. And so you've kind of deluded yourself.
Yeah, that's easily done. So you're lying to yourself in effect, aren't you?
Yeah, really. That's exactly what you're doing. You're lying to yourself. You're not intending to. It's not like you're wanting to be harmful or something. It's just that's what you end up doing because you started from a negative place. So what I like to remind people is, if you're in that negative place, don't try to jump immediately to love and compassion. It may be too high to go. Start for indifferent. Start for, I don't really care about that. Just let go of it. And then that raises you to a better vibration where love and compassion start to become within reach. But don't try to just go immediately for love and compassion is what I'm saying. Give yourself a way to climb there.
Yeah, I suppose so. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's, if you're in a place of love and compassion to begin with, and then somebody attempts to then derail you from that place, sort of the tack I was coming from, then it's very difficult for them to do that if you're already at that higher vibration, regardless of what they say and do. But it's always good to try and keep yourself there majority of the time by being present and understanding your feelings and your thoughts and how they all interact together.
Well, that's the advantage, isn't it? Because if you're staying there most of the time, if you're there most of the time, then it's habitual. Now you have that new habit. We talked before about how so many people are negatively habitual. But if you're positively habitual, if your habit is to experience things positively, then you're right. It's so easy to get into that space of, well, I'm just going to throw love that person's way. Boy, is that going to really throw them off. But I'm just going to throw love there, and they're going to have to make a shift of some kind. They're either going to have to leave or they're going to have to change their vibration, but they can't stay in that space of negativity and stay close to where I'm putting out that love. The two don't mix.
You've got to be very careful with this though as well, because I picked up that in what you said then. Because you said, "Oh, I'll just throw some love and compassion at them, and then it'll derail them." But again, then you're coming from a negative place. You're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
You've got to be really careful. It has to be true love and compassion. It can't be pretend love and compassion to derail them and get them, throw them off where they want to be, because that's not really love and compassion, is it?
Right. You're right. Exactly right. Yeah.
It's a complicated concept that you've got to be really on the ball with.
That's why I say the first thing is to. I don't think you can't get to the love part until you get to the part where you don't really care about whatever negative thing they're throwing at you. whatever negative thing
Exactly.
they're trying to pin on you, whatever blame there is or whatever. You have to be indifferent to that before you can be in the love and compassion place. I think it really has to go in that order. Unless, like you say, you're already in that high positive place, in which case you don't need to deal with that because you're already in a high positive place. But when we
Exactly.
skip that, when we skip that step, that's when I think we set ourselves up for problems, all kinds of problems. And you nailed it. Just the way I expressed it, I inadvertently skipped that step.
It's great. And when we talk and we have these conversations, we both pick up on the other person's not
Oh yeah.
failings as such, but you pick up on things I've missed, and then by the end of the conversation, we've got it all as it should be in a nice, easily framed little box that everybody can use. I think it's fantastic.
Susie posted a rather extensive comment, and I wanted to share it. She says, "There's a tipping point that is brought with awareness and presence where you begin to neutralize by not caring." I love that you picked up on that, Walt. From that point of neutrality, you build a new perspective that shifts you onto the track of a higher frequency. That's beautifully said. Really well said. That's it.
I really like that. That's well thought out. That hits the nail on the head, doesn't it?
It really does. And then she followed up by saying it's all an inside job, and she's right.
Oh, it is, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the main thing about this is that only you decide how you want them to feel about it. And no matter what the outside experience is, if you've accepted that you've created it in some form or another from your thoughts and your feelings and the way that you are, it actually has absolutely no power over how you then feel moving forward unless you allow it to.
Mm-hmm.
So other people's negativity, other people's issues with you and comments towards you actually are not important. It's none of your business really what they think of you.
Yes.
And to be honest, in some form or other, you have created them being like that towards you anyway, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really the answer to Sammy's questions. Sammy asked, well, how much time do I need? You need as much time as you need in order to get past that, what you just said.
Yeah.
That's it.
Once you're at the stage where you're in full control of everything and you absolutely 100% know you are, that's it. You've done it. You're there.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the really funny thing is, then the thing appears and you say, whoa, where did that come from?
All of a sudden you're getting things thrown at you from all directions.
Yeah, right. It's funny how that happens. Isn't it interesting how we do that? We are creatures who have our brief moments where we get into a positive space and then good stuff happens and then we're amazed by it. Now, from the outside perspective, it's perfectly obvious. Well, you got yourself into a good feeling place and then something good happened. Okay, no big deal. But from the experience of it, ourselves, when we're in the middle of it, it's like watching a magician. He just pulled a hat out of a rabbit. You know, any magician can pull a rabbit out of a hat, but pulling a hat out of a rabbit, that's a trick.
That is a trick, isn't it? I've never seen that one as yet.
Actually, I have seen that one. It was well done, too.
Have you?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm serious. I saw that trick one time. I saw a magician pull a hat out of a rabbit. It was bizarre. I'd never seen anything like that. But he had an actual rabbit. He was holding the rabbit, and he starts pulling this thing out. It looks like he's pulling it out of the rabbit's mouth, and as it comes out, it takes the shape of a hat. Like, how the hell did he do that?
I wonder if the digestion afterwards.
You wondered what?
I was wondering if the rabbit had indigestion afterwards.
Probably, yes. It reminds me of the movie. Have you seen the movie? What's it called? The Illusionist. Have you seen The Illusionist? Came out a few years back.
I think so. But, remind me. The name rings a bell.
It was a story of a young man who grows up learning how to do magic tricks very early in his life. He meets a magician and has some interesting experiences with this magician and starts going through life trying to look for what he calls a real mystery and keeps learning all these tricks along the way and is kind of disappointed because he hasn't been able to find uh, a real mystery except for one real mystery. And that one real mystery is why he fell in love with a childhood sweetheart and what he could possibly do about that. That was the only mystery he couldn't unlock. But he was able to find all these other things. So he ends up in Budapest and opens up a show and starts doing these amazing acts of illusion, of being like a magician. And some of the tricks that they had him perform in the movie were just they were beautiful. I mean, they were just mesmerizing and fun. I mean, there was one where early on he has a member of the audience pull out her handkerchief and put it into a box, and he does this long trick, and then at the end of the trick, he says, "Where's your handkerchief?" She opens up the box. The box is empty. They look up on stage, and there's the handkerchief hanging in the air, being carried by two butterflies that are flapping their wings. You say, "Whoa, that's a seriously good illusion." It was a fun movie for those kind of things. Plus, it also had a supernatural side, or I should say, a spiritual side to it, because, well, I won't try to tell the whole story. I'll encourage people to see the movie, but in one particular segment, he is trying to basically pull off a deception of the prince of the realm in order to get the prince to let him alone, essentially, let him and his love alone. And toward the end of accomplishing that goal, he creates an act in which he appears to create, or he appears to not generate, but to draw in spirits. He creates these illusions of spirits, and you actually see human forms in sort of a translucent light that are able to interact with the audience. You say, "Whoa, what a cool illusion that is!" But it turns into a very major theme in the story. Again, I won't try to tell the whole story because it would ruin it. Anybody who hasn't seen it, just go see The Illusionist. Get it, live stream it, or stream it off of Amazon or whatever, or get a DVD or something, a Blu-ray. But watch The Illusionist. It's a really, really fun movie, really good movie, very, very well done, and it really illustrates exactly how we are the creators of our own illusions. And that's the point I was leading up to. We are the creators of our own illusions.
Well, that's it, because you actually, this is one of the major things that I work with my clients on, is our mind create around certain situations, events, or whatever in our life, which then prevent us from forward and taking the action required to grow. Perfect example of that is somebody that's wanting to be a public speaker and go and stand up on stage, share their vision or story or whatever it may be, and they've got a story in their mind. I think Joel's touched on this before, because and when you're actually, I've been in this situation myself as well, when you're actually stood there waiting to go on stage, or even the first time I did this podcast, my subconscious mind will throw things at me like, what if nobody likes you? What if your story's not important enough? What if everybody laughs? What
right?
All these different stories that you might create around the outcomes that are going to happen in that situation are actually complete illusions that you've fabricated by thinking about the potential future. And that's exactly that, creating those illusions. Your mind creates those illusions.
Yes, exactly right.
To try and protect you, because that's his job.
Yeah.
But again, some of those things can cause anxiety. It can stop you doing the things that you want to do in life. But once you realise the reality of what they are, and that they are only illusions, and then you change those illusions stories that you create positive, that everybody is going to like my story, everybody's going to engage with me, and everybody's going to have fun and enjoy my sharing our experience that I'm going to put out there. All of a sudden, they can think it, yeah, but when you actually go to the experience and creating that and going through with it, it's never ever anywhere near what the mind had created as that negative around it, is it?
Yeah, we build things up out of proportion, don't we? We start with this little tiny seed of doubt, and we build it into a monstrosity of horror. We're very good at it. It's a skill. And the good news is that because we have that skill, we can also build in the other direction, which is what we try to learn. That's what it's all about in terms of becoming a deliberate creator, right?
And and that's what's so powerful. That's absolutely what's. Once you get to that stage of creating those outcomes before it happens, and then going and seeing them unfold in front of you as your outward experience of reality, awesome. Such an amazing.
Well, I don't see any other questions coming from the live stream. I see new people coming in and so forth. Hello, Salahadin. That's a nice name. I like that. But until we see questions there, I'm just going to come up with a couple of questions of our own. Actually, we only have probably time for one question, so I'll bring up one question for us to discuss. But I'm going to go to a common kind of question that I see on Facebook a lot. This is a question that takes a lot of different forms, but the one I saw today was, I just got over a guy, right? We broke up, and I shouldn't say I got that she got over it. It was that she hadn't gotten over it, not entirely. She didn't want him in her life. She wanted him gone. She was glad that they broken up, but she was still focusing on him, and she was still finding thoughts of him popping up and getting signs about him and so forth. And she didn't want them to come. She just didn't want them anymore. So what do you say to somebody who's got all these thoughts popping up about somebody that they're trying to leave behind, and they really want to leave them behind? They don't want him there anymore.
Yeah, it's a common one that comes up quite a lot. And the real and honest answer to that is to go out and start doing something new. Start focusing on the things that you do want, things that you want to create in your life moving forward without that person, and go and start doing it. And you'll find that thoughts of them they'll still come up every now and then, sure, but eventually they'll fizzle out into insignificance because you've replaced them with other things that your subconscious celebrates and enjoy more.
Right. So when you're focusing on that, how does that keep the unwanted thoughts from coming in? Talk about that for a moment. Oh, did we lose you?
No, I'm still here. I'm just going on to motorway.
Oh.
Right. Okay. Yes, I had to concentrate then. So, as you're filling your mind with positive outcomes that you want to create moving forward, it leaves, and you're focusing on those on purpose, then it's very difficult for you to then create in their place, because you've already got something there. So you're already actively thinking about something. How can this other thought, turn up and come back in? Unless you drift off, stop being so present, about being in the present moment, and then creating the thoughts that you want, rather than drifting off into the subconscious mind and allowing those thoughts that you or create negative vibrations and feelings.
And in doing that, you end up shifting your mindset. And when you shift your mindset, you end up attracting new stuff.
Exactly.
And that's really what the trick is. Every time that you find yourself focusing on this guy you broke up with, just change the subject. Change your subject of attention to anything. It almost doesn't matter what it is, right? I mean, as long as it's not him. It's got to be
Exactly.
anything. If you're driving, focus on the car that just drove past you. Focus on that person walking on the street. Focus on, the blue sky. Focus on any. Well, actually, you don't want to focus on the blue sky when you're driving, but you understand what I'm saying. Focus on something else.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Because what you're doing there, in effect, is when you're great example when you're driving. When you're driving, your mind does tend to wander, and if you're focusing on your ex, that means your subconscious mind is living in the past.
Right.
And subconscious mind can't tell the difference between the past, present, and so if it's focusing on that person in the past, then it's going to bring up all the feelings and that are associated with that experience that you're thinking about. It's got to be a memory. It can't be existence. It's not happening now. It can't be in the future because you're not going to see him again. So you've got to be focusing on a memory. And whilst you're in the past, you're stuck there, and your subconscious is going to run on those feelings from that. So it's about then, as soon as you put yourself back into the present moment, that can be something as simple as I'm doing it now. It's stroking the stitching on the steering wheel because you're actually touching it. That's bringing you back to the present moment. Instantly, you'll stop thinking about him because you're now in the present moment, and then you can choose what to think about from there. Does that make sense?
Isn't it funny? It can be just the littlest thing like that. Just something to break that train of thought. That's all you really need, is to break the train of thought and then redirect. Because ultimately, we control our own focus. We control our own perspective at all times. We get to decide what we're going to pay attention to. So pay attention to something else, anything else. It's up to you what you're going to pay attention to. It can be the simplest thing. Just pay attention to something else. And when you do that consistently, it's kind of like it's like an active meditation. I mean, in meditation, you focus on your breathing, and then your mind starts to wander, and you say, "Oh, nope, don't go that way. Come back to the breathing." You focus on the breathing, your mind wanders someplace else, and you go through this over and over and over again, right? Until finally you get to the point where your mind has calmed down and is quiet. Well, we're not actively trying to make our minds quiet. But we're still engaging in that same little tug of war. The mind goes over to the guy. Nope, not going to the mind. We're going to focus on the steering wheel. Well, the mind goes to the guy. Nope, we're going to focus on changing the radio station. Oh, it goes over to the guy. Nope, we're not going to the guy. We're going to focus on that car that's in front of me. Oh, goes over to the guy. Nope, we're not going. You're just doing it over and over again until finally your subconscious mind gets the message and says, "Okay, I'm not going to pay attention to him anymore. I give in."
Exactly. But also, if you're at first it will be difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be an instant fix. But it is an instant fix as soon as you bring yourself back to the present moment. But in your mind, if you're not used to doing this, if you're not used to being in the present moment, past or future or whatever, it's going to be hard work to start with. But it's about practicing it, and the more you practice it, each time you bring yourself back away from that thought that you don't want to focus on, every time you do it, it'll get quicker and quicker, and you'll spend less time in that space you don't want to be.
The funny thing too is I would think of it as being hard work until I finally realized it's actually pretty easy work. I mean, all I'm doing is just redirecting my attention over and over and over again. Yeah. The thing that's hard about it is, oh God, I have to keep doing it over and over and over again. That's what seems hard. But it actually isn't hard. It's just, nope, I'm just bringing my attention back. And what makes the hard work seem easy is when you remember it doesn't go on forever. It stops after a while. All you're really trying to do is retrain your subconscious mind, and once your subconscious mind got retrained, you're done. The work's over.
Yeah, the work's over. Then you can move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and then it gets quite exciting. Then
it does. Yeah. And so it's really just trying to practice deliberate focus all day long throughout our days.
That's it. And even while you're asleep.
And when asleep, well, yeah, you can program that, can't you?
Lucid dreaming. That's another topic for another time.
Sounds good. Before we run out of time, by the way, I want to make sure I get my announcements in because I do like the idea of lucid dreaming. I want to talk about that, but I want to make sure I get the announcements in first. So if you're enjoying the podcast, if you're enjoying what we're talking about, and you're not yet a subscriber, hey, what are you waiting for? Become a subscriber, because that's how you get all these episodes coming. And they're all different. They all talk about, we're all talking about the same subject, law of attraction. But we're talking about it from different perspectives and with different focuses every time, answering all the different questions that come up. And that's what's so cool about it. So become a subscriber so you can get all of that coming right to your smartphone. And it's so simple to do. There are links almost everywhere that we post this, but if you can't see the links, just go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net, and right there at the top of the page, there'll be this great, great big link that says, click here for your device. It'll name what kind of device you have, and you click it, and you just walk through the steps of the wizard, and just like that, you're a subscriber. It's literally no more difficult than that. And then, of course, once you're a subscriber, make sure that you share the fact each time that you're listening with friends and so forth on social media or whatever, saying, hey, I'm listening to this cool stuff. You ought to listen to it too. Because that's how we spread the word and help more and more people get their daily dose of happy. So I just wanted to make sure I got that message in. And while we're doing messages, Steve, why don't you tell people how to reach out to you as a life coach in case they're looking for a little one-on-one action? Because like you said, sometimes you need somebody to just kind of walk you through it personally, directly, one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, anybody who wants to, obviously feels like they resonate with what I do and talk about, can get in touch through Facebook or Messenger. Just go to my profile, which is Steve Rowell. That's Rowell, Rowell. And either that or you can get me on Instagram at that's ste.rowell, and that's my Instagram tag. Also, you can visit my website, which is www.newlifeonpurpose.com. That is in the process of changes made at the moment. So once that's up and running, there will be some free resources and some paid resources on there that you can get as well. And yeah, anybody that does mention LOA today and wants to have a chat, they can have an initial coaching session, talk about LOA and how that fits into your mindset fits into making that work for you, really.
Cool. Well, that's great. That's a nice offer.
Can't beat a freebie.
Excellent. Love it. So, okay, well, we've got like 3 minutes left, actually about 2.5 minutes left. So we can't really do a whole thing on this little last topic that we talked about, because like you said, that we could do a whole show on. But what's the last thought we could leave people on with it?
With lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming, yes, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's about being conscious of what you're dreaming about and being able to direct that whilst you're asleep. Pretty awesome. You can actually practice this and get quite good at it. I'll start having a dream that's not conducive with where I want to be, and can move it around and change things.
It's always been a challenge for me. I mean, I've talked about lucid dreaming with other co-hosts, and yeah. I've had a number of different dreams, a number being, a number that you can count on one hand, where I could tell it felt very, very real. I've not had so much success with being able to direct the dream or to, deliberately control which direction it's going to go into, and that to me is the cool part about lucid dreaming. Now, have you experienced where you've been successful in redirecting where the dream is going?
Not very often, but I've done it. I have managed it a few times, which is so strange. It's such a experience to have, but a nice one at the same time, because you can do anything in a dream. Yeah, I won't give you the examples now because we haven't got time, but yeah, maybe next time I'll talk about one of the examples, or although it might be.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'll have to try and remember. Cause you don't always remember the dreams either afterwards. That's a problem.
Well, hey, I have trouble remembering what we did in the last podcast, let alone remembering my dreams. So I totally understand what you're saying.
I don't know. What day is it again?
Yeah, right. What day is it? It's Tuesday, April the 2nd. Mark your calendar.
It's been a good one again.
It has been good. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. Thank you also to our live stream listeners and to our regular podcast listeners as well, because without you, we wouldn't have a podcast to do. So thank you very much. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.